Oh, hey, we are live. What's up, wrestling fans? And fortunately for us, it's been an incredibly slow news week, so we're probably just going to blow through this show in maybe 5-10 minutes with, the very few things we actually have to talk about. What's happening, Kevin?
Everything, Doug. I believe everything literally is happening. We take 1 week off, and actually this is the last show we'll have for several weeks. We're getting ready to take a summer break, and we were already looking at a main event topic where we were going to preview 2 straight weekends of pay-per-views. So we're going to talk pay-per-views with AEW and New Japan and WWE. But Doug, first, we got to talk about the scandals rocking WWE, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling before we can talk about their pay-per-views. So what do you say?
Sure, I've got me a tasty beverage. I just had a snack. Let's get into this. It's going to be a long one.
Tell the affiliates we are running long tonight. Hey, before we even get started, I want to say thank you, everyone. The last show we had was one of the most watched episodes of the Two Bros Wrestling Show. So if you watched, thank you. Hopefully you've taken the extra steps to like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us again on a busy news week. Doug, any of these stories on a normal week would it be some of the biggest wrestling news of the year. We just happen to have them all in 1 week. So let's get to it.
Let's do this.
The Wall Street Journal broke the news this week that WWE CEO Vince McMahon was under investigation by the company's board in relation to a $3 million settlement that he paid a former employee back in January. This employee was a 41-year-old paralegal, and she signed an NDA as part of this agreement. And apparently it was a consensual sexual relationship, and she was basically paid to be hush about it. But because of the investigation, the board has uncovered many more things. So reports say that there are apparently many NDAs and many hush money payouts over the course of who knows how long they've dug back, but reportedly reaching the millions and millions of dollars and pulling in others other than just Vince McMahon himself, most notably the company's head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, also known as Johnny Ace, and I guess Stepdaddy Bella. So, I mean, it's going to change the whole Total Bella's dynamic when he's on there with Kathy being all like lovey-dovey. But this has been quite a week for Vince McMahon and WWE, Doug. We expected at some point in time that the old man would step aside, and he'd obviously pick the heir apparent as being Stephanie McMahon. Of course, several months ago, or a month and a half ago, she stepped aside from her role with the company to say she was spending more time with her family, when apparently since our last show that we've done, more has come to light that it was apparently Vince himself who had driven Stephanie out, and it was apparently performance related, according to some on the inside who had not been happy with her performance as chief brand officer. And now this big curveball this week, and voila, the board brings Steph back to run things because Vince McMahon voluntarily stepped down from running day-to-day operations in order for the board to do its investigation. He said he would abide by whatever decision they come up with. But then, Doug, he shows up on Friday night.
But I think it's important to note that as chairman and CEO of WWE, he has stepped aside, and that is now Stephanie is the interim of that. However, Vince is still the head of creative. He will still be traveling, as I understand it, to all shows, still doing his thing. So basically, it looks to me, I'm no corporate legal expert or anything like that, but just some armchair analysis here. Kind of looks like he handed the keys to the kingdom to his daughter, although he's still running the show and it's still business as usual, and he even used it to pop a rating on Friday night. I mean, it's
look at that whole Friday appearance two ways. Like, obviously a ratings ploy, knowing that people would be tuning in to hear what he had to say, and then what he had to say was pretty much next to nothing. He comes out and basically just repeats the tagline of WWE, which is then, now, forever, wink, wink. And together. And so, yes, either lawyers got in his ear and said, really, you aren't making a very wise decision. You shouldn't say anything. Or it was his plan all along just to go out there and say, welcome to Smackdown, just to show, hey, folks, I know you've been hearing a lot about me in the news this week, but in case you missed it, I'm still here and I'll be here forever and I'm still running things. So welcome to Smackdown, everybody. Together, we're going to get through this in the same way that he took on the big evil government during his steroids trial. I mean, Vince is definitely of a victim mindset, and despite being a billionaire, will perceive himself as the underdog being wrongfully persecuted in this whole thing. So he's got it all set up by very, very I guess you'd say typical Vince McMahon fashion.
So this is interesting. I was listening to the Jim Cornette podcast earlier today, and Cornette was talking about the Friday thing, and Cornette said from a business perspective, where he's had business relationships and what he knows of that in the past, he was talking about how it's almost like one of those like terrorist movies where terrorists like bomb the White House or whatever, the American public is panicking, and then there's that tight zoom on the president, and then he's like, I've got to speak to the people. They've got to know I'm still here. And he likened it to that, Vince coming out, speaking to his people, and letting them know, hey, I'm still here. It's okay. We're going to get through this, which I thought was very interesting.
Because for what it's worth, he did get quite the pop.
Exactly. Yeah. And Cornette was pointing that out too. What a pop he got. People singing along to the theme song like it's Judas, over on the other channel, like he said. I mean, but it's just a very interesting analysis that Cornette had of that, and knowing what he has of that insight he has of the man, the myth, the legend that is Vince McMahon. But man, I don't know where this goes. I bet Johnny Ace does not have a job for much longer, because if anybody's going to fall from this, it's going to be Johnny Ace.
And he might be the one that takes the hit for Vince in order for someone to pay for this misdeeds, because I know Vince says he will abide by whatever decision the board makes, but can you or any one of us who have followed this man over the last 40 years of his professional wrestling life, can any way foreseeable Vince McMahon going quietly into that good night is not the way that Vince McMahon plays ball?
No, absolutely not. You get in one way you can read that Friday night, that quick little address, as his thank you, good night. But there's no way that happens under a Vince McMahon regime, even if his daughter's running things. And I also had heard recently that them running down Stephanie was a way to calm the shareholders as well, and say, she's not she's not leaving a sinking ship. There was very poor performance there, so that's why they buried Stephanie on her way out, to calm shareholders. That way, it's like, she's not leaving. Nothing's wrong here. Everything's fine. The fire around us, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't look around.
So, I mean, the timing of when Stephanie starts to step aside,
right? This is
very suspicious to when the board began its investigation, right around that, just a few weeks prior to that. And this is information that had to be leaked to the Wall Street Journal by someone amongst the board. Someone in the know had to leak this information, wanted it to be public for folks to sort of persecute Vince McMahon in the court of public opinion, if nothing else. And it obviously helped to pull Stephanie back into the fold, because Stephanie didn't just step away for family, like she said. I mean, they may not have given another person the title of chief branding officer, but they have brought in a couple of really high profile executives who essentially are doing many of the elements of Stephanie's job. And now here she is back as the CEO, because Vince still owns a majority of the shares. Now, he doesn't have a majority of the voting power, but he does have enough of that. And if it's a 12-person board that is going to decide his fate, we should also point out that the WWE board is made up of WWE executives and members of Vince McMahon's own family, including his daughter Stephanie, as well as his maybe back in good graces son-in-law Triple H. Right. I mean, he needs Paul's vote now, I suppose. So maybe that's why Paul's back at NXT, back running some things again. Man, what to make all this, Doug? It's drama.
You know, this in itself, we could do a show or maybe 2 or 3 shows on this.
For sure.
You know, just this news story. But I mean, there's just so much that goes into this because, you know, we can have wild speculation that Stephanie's leave of absence was all triggered, you know, some sort of bizarre Vince McMahon contingency plan put into place, runs his daughter down, buries her in the public, only to have her swing back around when, you know, hey, here, hon, take control of the company while daddy goes, and he's been a bad boy, so he's got to lay low for a while. I mean, you could do that angle with it, or, you know, then there's the alternate angle, and, you know, we are way on the train to speculation station with all this nonsense. But, you know, you can also look at it as a work shoot, you know, speculation conspiracy angle where maybe Stephanie's the one that leaked this on her way out, you know.
I mean, Dad did turn his back on both her husband first and then on her. And, you know, if it is the succession plan that you and Triple H will be one day taking this over, and yet I boot you guys, it could have been retaliation. I mean, it could be that Attitude Era McMahon family drama where they all had different segments of the business that they in storyline, you know, ECW, WCW / under Stephanie going head to head with Vince, like all of that scripted drama might actually be playing out in real life right now. We don't really know.
I mean, and that's it. You know, we don't really know what's going on, and it's really fun to speculate because, you know, I texted you the other day. I was like, everything is a work shoot at this point. You know, nothing is real. Everything is crazy. The wrestling world is exploded this week.
And eventually, when Stephanie was going to take over, we all began to surmise it was only going to be after Vince dies on the job, that he was in no hurry, despite his advancing age, to leave WWE under any circumstances. These could be the circumstances, though, that he's not able to recover from. While I cannot imagine Vince McMahon going quietly or accepting a board decision, there have been many experts that have been polled by the Business Journal, Wall Street Journal, and others saying that this is the type of scandal that most CEOs do not survive, that whether it's a payout or what, the board will, to protect shareholders' interest, be more inclined to have Vince step away as quietly as you could get Vince McMahon to step away from the wrestling business. And we all know that will not be quietly.
And so, if I'm understanding this right, you know, especially from his lawyer, from what I've been reading and watching on news sites, is that, you know, there's really no denying that this actually happened.
Right.
The defense is that he used his own money to do this, you know. And that's fine.
If you're not dipping in the company funds, I mean, who knows what all sordid details are going to come out about these other NDAs or what John Laurinaitis may have done. But if the prevailing information the board has to do with this payout in January, and it turns out it is his own money and it was a consensual relationship, it would be hard on that alone, I think, to get him to go away.
On that alone, sure, but it's my understanding that WWE does have some morality clauses built into everything, that to all their contracts and everything. And I think that's where the trouble for Vince is here. That it's not, he didn't use corporate money to do this, but that he did this to begin with. And there's some, I guess, some corporate laws and bylaws built into the WWE that make this trouble for him. I don't know. It's all just so bizarre. So
bizarre. And you know, it's consensual, and apparently now I guess this should be no surprise. You know, it is extremely wealthy people, and that they would stay married for the sake of being two extremely wealthy people. But now it is coming out that apparently Linda and Vince have not really been a married couple in years and years and years.
Right.
Vince even recently on the Pat McAfee show referring to Linda as my wife at the time, and then correcting himself. I mean my wife. It's like bizarro world, dude. This is bizarro world, and we will continue to follow it because this is just, I have a feeling, the tip of the iceberg. Once these details start to fly, who knows what all we will find. Apparently this paralegal again was also involved with John Laurinaitis, so it was the quote that came out was that Vince passed her around like a toy. Even if he's done nothing legally wrong, that morality clause is going to be the one that probably, I guess, trips him up. But on the other hand, Doug, it's the world of professional wrestling, and this is Vince McMahon. Would any of this be surprised? I mean, I'm probably more surprised that there even was such a morality clause.
I know, right? I'm surprised that WWE has something like this built into their, corporate, constitution or whatever it is.
If this is the end, it is not the way any of us would have saw Vince McMahon going down.
We're going to have to stay tuned on this one. And this is just the first of many stories this past week.
Well, you bring up contracts, Doug. Let's go to that one next. Sasha Banks reportedly let go from her contract. Obviously, she and Naomi walked away quite famously last month from a live edition of WWE Raw, and having pretty much left their tag team titles on the desk of one previously mentioned Sean Laurinaitis, as it all ties in together. And even though there's been no public statement from Sasha or WWE yet, there's numerous sources actually confirming today that this is in fact a thing, that she was allowed to walk, and it's just a matter of time before both parties do make some sort of statement. So, Doug, Sasha Banks, AEW bound or Hollywood bound?
This was a hard one to call, man. She can do whatever she wants. She is a definite star, wherever she goes or whatever she does next, So I think, really it's her call. I'd love to see her in AEW. Absolutely. What I'd love to see her in season 3 is my, favorite Mandalorian, Coscaroo's making a return. Yes, but, she can go anywhere, man. I never bet against the boss, and I will not in this situation either.
No, I wouldn't either. I would not be surprised, especially with all that Tony has on his plate and AEW has on their plate, if she ends up back in the world of wrestling, but maybe is in no hurry to do so, with other options on the table and with the bad taste likely in her mouth. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Sasha took her ball and went home once before and had a pretty long sabbatical away from the ring, went all the way to Japan and to train under Miko Satomura and others, and just to rekindle her love of professional wrestling. So she probably isn't necessarily going to be popping up on a Wednesday here anytime soon. I would say I would love to see it too, but I think she gives herself a break if I had to guess. But apparently this is a thing, and no word yet though on Naomi, who apparently is still under contract, and no movement on that one yet. Stay tuned on that one. Another story we're going to have to follow. And in news that I thought would be by far the biggest news of the week until like the rest of the week happened, but Jeff Hardy's history of substance abuse has caught up to him once again, this time at AEW. The wrestling legend was arrested for alleged DUI in Florida on Monday and charged with DUI, alcohol, drugs, third offense within 10 years. He was driving with a suspended or revoked license. His blood alcohol count was more than 3 times the legal limit of 0.08. He registered at a 0.294 and a 0.291. And video has since surfaced since this arrest of Hardy at a convention hours before he was pulled over by the Florida authorities. He was throwing back drinks and publicly saying how whiskey was his best friend and his worst enemy, at least until that video, I guess. It's his third impaired driving offense in 5 years. He was arrested for DWI in 2019, arrested for driving while impaired after a car accident in 2018, and then arrested for public intoxication in 2019, after which WWE washed their hands of Hardy. And now AEW, for their part, after taking a chance on someone that maybe it was not quite so wise for Tony Khan to take a chance on, or maybe you could even consider him enabling an addict by so quickly after him falling off the wagon, giving him an influx of cash. But they have suspended him without pay indefinitely until he completes a substance abuse program. Doug, this one, how do you see?
Man, we watched that last AEW pay-per-view, and as soon as Matt and Jeff came out, we were both like, what's happening here? I mean, they've talked about, Jeff taking a hit pretty early on, Jeff being injured from previous things.
Yeah.
And then Jeff actually, we watched it together and commented on how, isn't this what got Jeff fired? When as soon as the match was over, Jeff jumps out and runs through the crowd. That's what got him terminated from WWE. However, they seem to recover from that and say, "Oh no, he took a nasty bump. You know, he's really tired. He's broken down. He's beat down.
He was just shook up. There was nothing else wrong.
Shook up." Man, I'm a hardcore AEW mark, so I really wanted to believe that. Then I see, I think it was Reby Hardy's TikTok where she's talking about, she has it in the rider, no alcohol, because I guess Jeff had some sort of performance at some sort of local area, and then he and Matt went to a WrestleCon in the area too. Matt gets him back to his hotel, make sure he's tucked away. Then he and Ruby split, and she's saying, short of making sure that he sleeps in between the two of them that night. They had done all they could do for him, arguing their thing about enabling. I don't know, man. I mean, I get that he's got his demons and he's got to fight those, and I hope he gets the help that he needs and his career, can rebound. Hindsight's going to be 2020 on this one. Maybe Tony Khan shouldn't have pulled the trigger, but I'm sure he had Matt in there going, "No, it's good. It's good." Yeah. Behind him, man. Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to judge this one too harsh because I am that mark, but if this was WWE, so I feel I do need to say this was just bad all around for AEW. However, I think they have course corrected at this point and are at least saying the right things publicly, willing to get him into rehab, not letting him come back until he has successfully completed a rehab program. And we're just going to have to wait and see where this goes, man.
We should point out, too, that unlike what we've seen in WWE for the last month or so with some of their issues being sort of aired publicly, AEW's comments are all being done to news media and not on air. The Hardys were not so much as mentioned. Jeff Hardy was not mentioned this past week, even though he was originally scheduled to be part of the main event angle. He and Matt were supposed to be part of that, what was to be a triple threat ladder match for the tag team titles, and they went forward with just a regular ladder match with the two teams and did not mention Jeff Hardy at all. Now, last night, the main event of Triple Mania, I watched it, and yes, so Matt very much addressed the crowd in that Jeff wished he could be here, and he will be here next time. Apologies, that sort of thing. So, and then of course introduced
the third Hardy,
Johnny Hardy, which I have to admit was kind of hilarious. But
who knew there was the third Hardy all this time?
Like Johnny Hardy, who apparently is also known as Johnny Caballero down in AAA. But man, the man with a bazillion names is apparently a Hardy as well. But so yeah, Jeff Hardy, best of luck. Gosh, no one wants to hear like another really bad Jeff Hardy story, but it's not a very positive week. And honestly, in some ways, if you wanted to look at this as glass half full for AEW, is that everything that happened within the next 2 days in WWE helped mitigate to some extent the black eye that they were receiving for the Jeff Hardy incident, because how quickly the headlines change on them. That's what happened here. And then yet more scandal to get through. Following up on a prior story we mentioned here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, and that being the public spat between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Kota Ibushi, New Japan Pro Wrestling president Takami Ohibahari, and the founder and president of parent company Bushido Road. I won't even try it. But anyway, they apologized to Ibushi for the actions of a backstage official and the very public handling of the matter. But even with that apology, New Japan Pro Wrestling Management said penalties would be levied for all those involved, including the Golden Star, and now those punishments have been levied. They include fines and in the form of a reduction of 10% of a reduction in pay for a 3-month period, and these fines were levied against Ibushi, as well as the president of New Japan himself, and then the quote-unquote official, which is just in quotes because they do not name who it was publicly, that was really the instigator of this with Ibushi. But reportedly, head booker Geto's primary assistant, Kikuchi, is the person who is apparently the one who had the spat. And this official, apparently, if it is in fact Ghetto's primary assistant, but this person has been removed from their duties and then reassigned within the organization. And some I guess, scandal news, but Randy Orton's back issues have progressively gotten worse, may require surgery. If so, it will keep the Viper out of action for the rest of this year. It also nixes the plans that were originally in place that would have a showdown between Orton and Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, which is why you saw the return of Brock Lesnar this past week.
They break glass, you know.
Then now and forever, we didn't know it meant Lesnar versus Reigns. But
was it Sean Ross Sapp that recently, you know, drilled down how many times we have seen this, and then it's like 5, 6, I don't know, 18. You know, something obscene. It's not 18. I'm exaggerating,
but it's not far, man. I mean, we've seen this a lot. And is it wrong for me to say though that in some ways I'm still slightly more excited about a Lesnar Reigns SummerSlam showdown than I would have been a Reigns Orton SummerSlam showdown?
Yeah, you know what? I get that, but shame on WWE for not creating new stars. You know, Cody's out, Randy's out. You know, Seth Franklin Rollins. I don't know what he's got going on right now, but.
Reportedly not happy that once again we're seeing Lesnar in the main event spot instead of someone else. You know, he's had some social media posts that would lead one to believe that he's definitely not satisfied. But I guess, Doug, with all we have going on, I think transitioning to main event, because I have some injury and some other news that actually ties into the very first thing we're going to talk about. So what do you say we get to that?
Let's do this. I need to bring up, which one are we talking about first? Are we talking about not Broken Door? It's Forbidden Door.
Yeah, let's take what the one that's happening next week, and that is AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling presenting Forbidden Door. But some news on that first. So again, sort of a transition between the news and the pay-per-view, because we have some news that is actually affecting the pay-per-view. Obviously, CM Punk, it was supposed to be in the main event of Forbidden Door, taking on Tanahashi, but of course, CM Punk is injured and will now not be able to participate. And it's not just injury that is really affecting Forbidden Door. They're having some issues.
Some contractual obligations, apparently.
Well, contractual obligations and family obligations. So, you know, we thought at the very least we had a match between Adam Cole and Okada on the books, which sounds amazing. And then the birth of his child will be happening around this time next week in all likelihood. So Okada is now off the bill. And as you alluded to, Doug, contractual contractual issues, because for those who are not aware, many of the talent for AEW have dual contracts with other organizations, including AAA in Mexico. Well, AAA's main competitor is CMLL, who has a working relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which has caused AAA to forbid its contracted talent from appearing on Forbidden Door, a New Japan Pro Wrestling production. So that means no Lucha Brothers, no Andrade. Several of the folks with AEW are bound by those contracts. So there's been a lot of shuffling of the card. Now, there's still some really great matches we want to preview here, and we'll try to do our best to, especially to those who might not be as familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling and their talent. We'll try to give you the sort of the gist of the background on some of these folks. But Doug, do you think the show will suffer from not having Punk, from not having Okada, from not having Lucha Brothers? Is this less of a show than we could have possibly had thought we were getting when it was announced?
Man, we still have Switchblade Jay White. We still have, Will Ospreay and United Empire, talking about New Japan stars. I think we're going to be okay. I would love to see Punk versus Tanahashi. It's not in the cards right now. I'm not super excited about Moxley Tanahashi, but, sure, I'm good for it. I would have rather seen Punk, but I'm a huge Punk mark. This. I think we're going to be okay. Lucha Brothers, I think Andrade has been, I'm just going to say it, misused since arriving in AEW. But shame on Tony Khan or at least his people, for not having these contracts straight and understanding what his talent can and cannot do before going into this. Because this is all being presented as these big surprises. Oh wait, we were going to do this, but now we can't because of this. That should have been ironed out way before Forbidden Door was even announced. So shame on Khan in the back office for not having that straight right out of the door.
Yeah. It's not like that one could have snuck up on you the way an injury can. So
right, exactly.
So yes, I think my expectations are a little lower than they would have been when I first heard of what they were going to do, because some of it does seem like it's having to be plan Bs, but some of these plan Bs look pretty good. So what do you say we get into it, Doug?
Let's do it. Let me pull up the card here. Hold on. It's a little card right now, unless some other things have changed. And they made some matches this week, which kind of confused me in the hustle of this week. But where do we start here? What do you want to start with?
I want to start with this 6-man. We'll build ourselves up to the biggest matches at the end. We'll talk before we switch to Money in the Bank, because stay with us.
This 6-man actually confused me, because I'm like, what is going on here? This seems really disjointed and just kind of thrown together almost. We're talking about the
Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, okay. Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota. Oh wow, I'm going to manipulate this.
Shota Umino.
Thank you, Shota Umino. I'm not familiar with this dude. And then Jericho, the newly reunited Jericho, and Sammy Guevara. And Minoru Suzuki. Okay, Suzuki and Wheeler in the same ring. I do want to see that. The Wizard, Chris Jericho. Sammy's going to do something crazy. I'm already calling that. Well, if Suzuki wasn't involved, I would say that Sammy. Yes, I've thought about this. I've thought very much about this. We will talk about this, Mr. David Poole. You should be our third man on this show tonight just for that comment alone, man. But I would say that Wheeler will do brutal things, Sammy will do crazy things, and we could leave it at that. But Minoru Suzuki being involved with this, there's going to be such a level of brutality and blood involved in this match.
I'm not familiar with Shota either, so I can't really tell you folks who maybe don't follow the New Japan product much about him. I can say that if you're not familiar with Minoru Suzuki, a legit mixed martial arts and professional wrestling legend in the world of not just Japanese wrestling, but is generally seen throughout the combat world as one of the first folks to actually put together the idea of like martial arts with wrestling, with boxing, and basically the mixed martial arts as we know them today would not be the same if it wasn't for Minoru Suzuki. He's that level of legend. A few years ago, when Ring of Honor had their working relationship with New Japan, they brought a tour over here where they jointly went together with New Japan talent, and I have to say, I was lucky enough to attend one of those, and it was Minoru Suzuki's first time wrestling in the States for like 25 years at that point. Now, obviously, he's been back a couple times since, most recently with AEW. So if you are not familiar with Minoru Suzuki, you are going to be in the presence of a legend. And as Doug said, the man hits hard because he is a legit combat fighter. We all know that Eddie Kingston also takes a beating and hits hard. Those two alone will just about kill each other, while Wheeler Yuta was going to do something to blow your mind, and Sammy Guevara is going to do something to make you think that he's lost his, right?
Sammy is going to make you wonder why. You're too young. Stop doing this. You're engaged again. Stop it. You have a future family to worry about.
I'm going to give this one, though, to the team of Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, and Sammy Guevara. Jericho and Guevara just recently reuniting. Yuta is there without his Blackpool Combat Club teammates. I don't know Shota enough to know much about him, so I'm thinking that that's the team that takes the loss. And Eddie loses more than he wins, and it never affects him. So I'm going with the heels.
And let's face it, Minoru Suzuki needs a win on American TV in AEW. He needs that. Every time he has faced any AEW talent, he has put them over. Great for him. Dude understands the business, but let's give Murder Grandpa a win, okay?
Grandpa.
You know what I'm talking about. You've seen his matches, man.
You're in for a treat, folks, just for the Minoru Suzuki connection. But the whole match will be, mayhem. Six people tag matches are always mayhem. This next one will be interesting. Let's talk the IWGP, which is the governing body of New Japan Pro Wrestling. The IWGP United States Championship on the line. Will Ospreay versus a returning Orange Cassidy. Will Ospreay, you will be familiar with him if you've watched the last week and a half of AEW television. They have introduced Will Ospreay to the American audience if they had not seen him previously. And consider yourselves impressed, because I'm sure there's no way you watched any of these broadcasts that you didn't walk away going, how is this guy not on Tony Khan or Vince McMahon's payroll? Right. Legit one of the best wrestlers in the world. Will Ospreay, and this one should be fantastic because you got the element of a returning Orange Cassidy, which you think the fans are going to pop big for, but Will Ospreay is not losing his United States Championship to Orange Cassidy.
He is not. When Cassidy goes, he goes and he goes hard, man. When he drops the comedy, but I enjoy Cassidy's comedy. I'm not a fan of comedy wrestling, but it works with Orange Cassidy. We'll start out with some light comedy, but Cassidy is going to go. He's going to go hard. But the aerial assassin, no way, none whatsoever. The aerial assassin walks away with his title intact.
And, this might be a good time to even mention that the way these bookings happen when you're talking cross-promotional, it's interesting to think about what machinations may be happening behind the scenes as far as, I want my guy to go over, you want your guy to go over, we're trying to protect this guy over in New Japan, but we need him to lose to this guy who needs protected over here. I'm thinking of back when I was a kid, and it was always like this amazing thing when what AWA and NWA are doing like a joint event, like Harley Race and Nick Bockwinkel are wrestling each other. And 9 times out of 10, that match would end up in a time limit draw, a disqualification, something that would prevent either guy from actually taking the life. We're in a different era now, especially when you're talking a pay-per-view that people are going to put their hard-earned money on. It's going to be difficult to have that kind of even-Steven booking and get away with it for all these matches. So I think that if you're trying, though, throughout the card to keep it somewhat even so that you don't have one promotion completely dominating the other, this has to be one that New Japan gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Will Ospreay. Aerial assassin, not losing to Orange Cassidy, man.
So let's then talk about one that I think is going to go the other way, that the American promotion is going to have to get, and that is the Ring of Honor / IWGP tag team titles, where you have the champions in FTR taking on Jeff Cobb and Great Khan and Roppongi Vice.
Somebody from Roppongi Vice is taking the L here for everybody. Roppongi Vice, a tag team in New Japan once upon a time. Now we've got, Trent Beretta, in with Best Friends. We've got, gosh, I can't think of his name now. His partner in this match,
Rocky Romero.
Thank you, Rocky Romero. I know Rocky more as a voice at the announce desk in New Japan, but Roppongi Vice, we've got him here. We've got them reunited. After the match between Will Ospreay and just one member of FTR. FTR is going over. It's going to be glorious.
Jeff Cobb is a beast. You've seen him a little bit on AEW, folks, so this. He also had a really great run in Ring of Honor a few years back. Great Khan, also a very legitimate heel. He's a tough guy who, a power guy, and so they make a formidable tag team. You can protect them and New Japan by extension by not having them lose. Roppongi Vice may be associated with New Japan historically, but you're talking Trent Beretta Beretta under contract with AEW. Rocky's made a lot of AEW appearances recently as well. So you can almost in-house have one AEW team go over another AEW team and not diminish New Japan in this particular match. And it complicates things by it being the Ring of Honor titles on the line too, because who knows how the Ring of Honor side of things factors into the equation of New Japan and AEW's arrangement here. So it's honestly just cleaner and easier to have FTR continue on.
Yeah, I agree. FTR continues their just juggernaut.
And so we have next, Doug, let's talk this women's match, because now it's getting interesting where we're kind of filling out the card, as it were, maybe because of some of the planned matches not happening, being able to happen. But this one's a total AEW one. Thunder Rosa defending the AEW Women's Championship against Toni Storm. Who wouldn't want to see it, but a little bit of an odd fit for Forbidden Door, don't you think?
I think so, unless you're trying to give, Toni Storm some New Japan rub because she and Juice Robinson recently got married. Other than that, I really don't see, the Forbidden Door here. But, love Toni Storm and love Thunder Rosa, but Thunder Rosa is keeping that title for a while. It's not changing hands here.
I'm going the other way.
All right.
I'm actually thinking that as much as I love Thunder, I actually love both of these women. They're both tremendous, so you can't lose. They'll put on a great match. Because I don't see a whole lot of the other championships changing hands, this might be the one where it is a total in-house deal, that if they wanted to make a switch, and give it one to Toni, who they seem really high on, as they should be. I think this would be a good spot. Toni did just beat Britt Baker, who forever and a day was the women's division of AEW. So that might be also a little foreshadowing that it's Toni Storm's time. So I'm going to go the other way on that one.
Cool.
So next, Doug, let's talk about this new championship, the All-Atlantic Championship that AEW is introducing, and they're kind of presenting it as an intercontinental style title where it's, they're using this tie-in with New Japan Pro Wrestling as a good time to introduce a international championship. They're just calling it the All-Atlantic Championship. And what we have with this right now is PAC versus Miro versus the winner of next Wednesday's match between Malachi Black and Penta Oscura. And then there is another person who will be appearing from New Japan. There's a New Japan Pro Wrestling qualifying match, and that is happening tomorrow. There's a show, New Japan Road. It's going to see Tomohiro Ishii take on Kanemaru and Tamaka Hamna. And then Clark Connors, who I don't know. But the winner of those qualifying matches will wrestle each other on the 21st. Out of that is going to come one New Japan representative in this contest. I think we know that Malachi Black is going to be your winner on Wednesday, since Penta cannot appear.
Why are they doing this? They need to acknowledge this and just pull Penta from the match. And yeah, I agree with Paul. I don't agree with that. That's the other comment he just made.
Sorry, I'm a copy of the time pulling it up there. I agree that Miro, I mean, the God's favorite champion, just recently returned, and he seems, yes, he's an AEW talent, but he's also Bulgarian and a true brute, and so he kind of embodies the whole aesthetic I think they're going for with this new championship. I'm giving him the nod, and I'd love to see Malachi Black sneak in there, but I'm with you. Acknowledge the fact that Penta can't. It's public knowledge now that these guys are not going to be on the pay-per-view. So you also, by doing that, give away the ending to your match on Dynamite.
It totally books itself. You have Malachi Black come out and just call it and say there's no reason for Penta to even come out here because he can't compete anyway. So even if he does win, which isn't going to happen, you cut a cool heel promo and then you have like a surprise, like switcheroo there and bring somebody else in. You still put Tommy End over in the end. Malachi Black goes on, to this match, but acknowledge it. And I'm not talking about range yet. Acknowledge it.
We still got that pay-per-view to go. Let's talk about somebody that David Poole mentioned earlier, because the next match I want to talk about, Doug, is the fact that it has been announced that Jay White is going to be defending his newly won IWGP World Championship. Switchblade is amazing. Gosh, who could it possibly be? We'll pull this one up, Scott. You asked the question, is Omega back? It's been a while.
No, he is not. He is allegedly not healthy enough to compete. Allegedly.
I think that this, I mean, because of some of the things you thought you'd see, Okada and America, which we've all been waiting for a long time, apparently still going to be waiting for it. The Punk Dream match, which also is going to have to wait. If you're going to pop some folks by some subterfuge of, hey, this isn't happening. No, he's not ready. This seems like a great time to have Omega, who is synonymous with both AEW, but previously best work of his career, it could be argued, also took place at New Japan. What a perfect tie-in to have him come on board and be the surprise Jay White opponent. What do you think?
And not only just an opponent for Jay White, he comes in to take on the guy who took him out of Bullet Club.
Yep.
You know, a triple threat, sure. Yeah, because both Hangman and Cole, both Adams need something to do, I think. So I agree with this. This is a good backup plan, but I think the story here, if Kenny is legit still not healthy enough to, compete, is the easy way out is to have, both Adams lose. I don't care which one it is. Jay White retains, keeps that belt, because Kenny comes back, he's not healthy enough. Whatever, Kenny loses. It's a great story. You have Kenny show up maybe at the end of this match. I think this is the best case scenario for everybody wins. Jay White keeps his belt. Somebody gets defeated. Maybe even Hangman takes the loss here because of some shenanigans that Adam Cole does, looking to try and get the win over him. Then you have Kenny come out at the end, maybe stand on the ramp, do a little bit of taunting, whatever, which then builds to something in the future between these two stars, Jay White and Kenny Omega, and also let the New Japan champ keep his belt for now.
If Omega comes back, then that is going to be your main event. If he isn't coming back, the plan B, that pull, that maybe you threw out there, I can see that as well. But I don't know that one would be main event. They'll probably go with the Moxley Tanahashi match in that instance. But the order of matches here is going to say a lot about what this surprise may end up being. Mm-hmm. Personally, I'd love to see Omega return, and not just because we all love Omega, but see Omega and White go at it. And Kenny, I would love to see him in his return win the one title that the belt collector did not have on him the last time around, and it would keep that tie going with New Japan going into the future, that maybe we could get Okada over here.
We get Okada Omega. Oh my, I hadn't even thought about that. Omega in the U.S.
Folks, if you've not seen any of the Okada Omega matches, just look at that man's face over here. Look at my partner's face. How excited just the sheer notion gets him. That would be a fantastic thing to see on American soil.
I gotta turn the fan on. Hold on.
Oh, I've overheated, Doug.
Okay.
We'll go to the last match, Doug.
Don't get a little crazy. Oh my goodness, I've not even thought of Okada Omega. Wow.
We'll see how they go with this one, but right now the scheduled main event is likely to be Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the interim AEW World Championship. And let me start by saying we hate interim championships around here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. I hate them even worse. If it's a world championship, there should be no interim world championship. I'm the grouchy old man here shaking my fist, but back in the day, if you can't make the defense within 90 days, you're stripped of the title. That's just the bottom line. So
that's a little old school. However, I think Punk should get an exception. He gets the CM Punk exception where, he has a broken wheel right now, man. He keeps that belt. We have an interim champion. I'm cool with that.
You're cool with the interim championship?
When it's Punk's, yes. Punk can keep his belt. We can have an interim champion for now.
So with this one, I think that you don't have I mean, unless you want to have the Tanahashi Punk match down the line, you give it to Tanahashi. But I think more than likely you're going to see Moxley, CM Punk. So I think because of that and the fact that you can keep that as an AEW match going into their next series of high-profile events, I think Moxley goes over. If you don't know Tanahashi, though, folks, think of him as almost maybe the John Cena of New Japan Pro Wrestling, that over guy who's been there for the last 15, 20 years and really was at the center of everything New Japan Pro Wrestling for the longest time until Okada got on the scene. But yeah, I think Moxley goes over in this one.
Yep. So we went straight to the top of the card, but we haven't touched on it. And maybe you're saving this one for last just because of who and what it is.
I may have skipped it.
Zack Sabre Jr. and Daniel Bryan. Or Bryan Danielson. Sorry. Yes.
Is that official? Did I just miss that one?
Well, you know, after Dominion last week, Zack Sabre cut a promo challenging him, so I can't see Bryan Danielson backing down from Zack Sabre Jr. So, I mean, come on, man. Bryan Danielson, Zack Sabre Jr.
I did not intentionally skip over that, but yeah, already you're talking match of the night. I mean, everything else would have to, maybe Omega Switchblade might be the only thing that would possibly compete with that. But even that, on pure technical terms, you're not going to beat Zack Sabre Jr., Bryan Danielson. I mean, you can't. So I think, gosh, I don't know. Maybe Danielson does the favors because he's just such a fan of international wrestling and doesn't care to lose. I think that, you got to see some New Japan guys go over here. It can't be AEW dominated because I think that we may be tilted a little heavy that way in our predictions. So I'm going to go Zack Sabre Jr.
I am too, man. I think Zack Sabre Jr. needs some love on American soil. You're going to look at the dude just like I did many years ago when he was in some sort of NXT competition. I don't even remember what it was. I'm like, who is this guy? My left leg alone weighs more than this guy. How is this guy? Oh, and then you see it, and you're like, okay. I'm on board now. My bad. Sorry, sir.
If you're not familiar, folks, he's not a flip flop and fly kind of guy, but you will never have seen a technical wrestler that will tie you into a pretzel the way that this guy will tie you into a pretzel.
Yeah, it was Cruiserweight Classic. Yeah. Because this is a tiny dude. He looks like he may weigh 115 pounds soaking wet holding a cinder block,
So that
the technical wrestling that is going to be a just clinic that's going to happen between these two dudes. My goodness.
So this is next Sunday night at the Forbidden Door. Hopefully the first of many. It's sold out very, very fast. And so maybe if it does a good buy rate, the issue is going to be outside the hardcore fans that are going to pack the arena in Chicago on a broader scale where you need buys. How many American fans will invest in something where half of the talent might be folks that are not familiar with? Hopefully a lot, but it'll be a good test.
It will be a very good test. I really hope this does good because I want to see more of this because I've got a feeling I'm not going to be such a mark for the next pay-per-view we're going to talk about for this.
Well, let's make that switch, Doug. 2 weekends away from now, we will be having Money in the Bank. And much like the AEW New Japan pay-per-view, WWE is also being marked by some drama. And I'm not just talking about the shadow of the McMahon fiasco, but the pay-per-view itself has shifted venues. WWE originally was having this one in a stadium. They sold nearly 20,000 tickets for Allegiant Stadium there in Las Vegas before deciding to pull the plug and move the event to a smaller venue across the street. So last year in the same venue, they had SummerSlam and it sold 45,000 tickets. And they really thought they could do something similar. Obviously didn't get even half of that and decided to switch to an arena that only holds around 12,000 people. So what happened is that they basically gave those folks that had bought tickets to the stadium show first dibs at trying again to get tickets to the arena show. And I mean, at least the strategy worked when you're only trying to fill 12,000, because all that's really left at this point is the premium platinum kind of packages and things. But so yes, on its face, this one has started out badly for WWE, in that the demand was not nearly what they had hoped for it to be. Let's see about the card. This is obviously 2 weeks out, but it's already got a decent number of matches on it. Let's start with Bianca Bel Air versus Rio Ripley, with a singles match for the WWE Women's Championship, the Raw Championship. Doug,
Bel Air.
The way that Bianca is going to lose this, right? Because she's got to have that rematch with Becky at SummerSlam.
Absolutely. The House of Purple, or whatever it is now that they've beat down Edge and kicked out their leader, does not get a win here. I really dig both these performers, but yeah, Bel Air keeps this belt, man.
Bel Air keeps the belt. I'm in total agreement on that one. Let's talk the other women's match while we're at it, the championship match, the SmackDown Women's Championship, because we might feel similarly about this one. Ronda Rousey, who has not been back all that long, is defending against Natalya, who obviously has been around longer than any WWE diva in history, has had more matches legit on pay-per-view than any WWE female talent in history. Therefore, it will be a very good match. But Ronda Rousey's not losing. She's going on to a bigger match at SummerSlam.
Agreed. Absolutely. Love Natty. Not a fan of Rousey. Her in-ring work is amazing. The character, I don't think she's ever caught on and found her thing with the character unless she's working heel. I think that worked. But, Natty will do the job here, and Rousey will go on to bigger and better things at SummerSlam.
I think it works for her to work heel, because I think that's naturally who she actually is.
Maybe so, man.
I mean, I like her. Again, I think that just her legitimateness that she brings to her character is part of the aura she has, but also probably why she's maybe a little difficult behind the scenes, and probably why it comes across on air like she should be a heel.
Yes, I agree.
This is always we'll save these to last. Let's talk the tag team match, which is the other thing that we definitely know all the participants for at this time.
Okay.
We have the unified WWE Tag Team Championship with the Usos defending against the Street Profits.
Man, Usos aren't losing their belts anytime soon. That thing is going to stay unified for a while. I don't see. This will be a great match.
Yeah, they always have it. This is the equivalent of the Roman Reigns Lesnar thing. We've seen this combination many times in the past, and they work really well together. They have great chemistry. But to your point, it's whatever happens with the Usos is going to be more closely aligned to whatever ends up happening to Roman Reigns. And obviously, his next chapter isn't coming until SummerSlam. So they cut right through this one. I mean, the big dog isn't even making an appearance for the second straight pay-per-view in a row. So the Usos have to retain and go on to SummerSlam, and then maybe we get into some jeopardy and some drama with them there on a bigger stage.
I'm in total agreement, man.
So these,
matches.
What's left are the two that are always the hardest to predict, because there's so many ways you can go, and at this point, not all of the participants are known just yet. So let's talk women's first, because we do know more of who's involved in that. Right now we have Lacey Evans, who the company seems really behind right now, reinvesting a lot of TV time into her. Alexa Bliss, sort of the same deal, kind of capitalizing on her return. They have slightly altered her character. She still has her friend Lily, but she's no longer apparently like dark Harley Quinn crazy about it. Liv Morgan, who just is an amazing talent who the WWE seems to have no long-term faith in. Raquel Rodriguez, who is a recent call up from NXT. I do think that she has quite the future on her. I don't know if now's the time. And then you have Asuka or Becky Lynch, and then either Aaliyah or Shotzi. And then two other participants yet to be determined. Obviously, there's many wild cards in this, since we don't know who's going to win those matches between Asuka and Becky and Aaliyah and Shotzi. I'm thinking Becky's getting her shot at SummerSlam, so you could say that either she's not going to be in this match or she's going to be in this match and not factor into the outcome. because she doesn't need the Money in the Bank. That's something that you just have in the background for some period of time. So I'm thinking, Doug, I'm kind of liking a Lacey Evans or Raquel Rodriguez. If you're wanting to make somebody with this match and elevate them by keeping them in the background, keeping them hot for a feud down the road, I think you give it to one of the talent that isn't as over. I don't see a Becky Lynch or an Asuka needing this, or an Alexa Bliss.
I don't see Becky Lynch or Asuka needing this, but I don't see Becky Lynch not being in this match because I love Aaliyah's heel work. She does great heel work. I cannot see her going over Becky, though. So Becky's going to be,
I think it's Aaliyah versus Shotzi. I think
it's okay, Aaliyah or Shotzi. Okay, I got you. I'm misreading it here.
So it's Asuka or Becky, but I think in that instance,
I tell you what, Raquel Rodriguez, also a great talent, but I'm going to go with the sentimental favorite here because they do have a lot of faith in Lacey right now, but I'm just going to go with Liv. Let's give this girl some opportunity.
So, I think I became semi-famous on this show for 4 or 5 straight pay-per-views picking, Liv's going to win the Royal Rumble. Right. She's going to be Becky and whatever the one was after. And then, like Charlie Brown with the football being removed, I just eventually thought, no, it's not going to happen for Liv. So I hope I'm wrong and you're right.
Hey, I'm picking up the torch for you, brother. I'm going to run with the Liv torch for a while.
Okay. We got David Poole here picking a Raquel Money in the Bank victory. I know that my choice was Lacey, but I think that if not Lacey, I think Raquel is another possibility because I do think that we'll try to maybe make somebody with this match, but we'll see. Which leads us to the men's match, who we know less about because there's 4 participants that have yet to be named. And then there's also a match between Shinsuke Nakamura or Sami Zayn. So it's either going to be Shinsuke or Sami that's going to be one of these participants. The ones we do know for sure are Seth freaking Rollins, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre.
So for me, this is easy without even knowing everybody that's going to be in this. Mr. Rollins gets this Money in the Bank shot, and I think they augment the. Here's some really fun fantasy booking, right? That takes out the Tribal Chief, who's on a much lighter schedule now, and Brock Lesnar. When we have Lesnar and Reigns at SummerSlam, who just beat each other down to an unbelievable degree. You have Seth win Money in the Bank this month. Next month, you have Seth come in, cash that in on these 2 beat down guys, take the unified titles away from both of them. Then you don't see those guys for a while. Then Cody's healthy enough to win a Royal Rumble, and then you keep those belts on Rollins until WrestleMania. That's just some fun fantasy booking for me. Or is it Elias?
I was just say, Elias, the big brother is coming back. So, it wouldn't surprise me to see this get rounded out with some Ezekiel level characters, maybe a Madcap Moss in there.
Well, maybe Ezekiel and Elias.
Oh, no. That would be quite the surprise. That's the direction they're going to go with it. I know in the last one I said that I can see them using Money in the Bank to make someone who wasn't already made. This is one with at least the participants we know now. These are all people that are either made or have already been defined for us as, in Sami's case, comedy. In Nakamura's case, a guy whose better days are behind him, but still solid. Sheamus been there, done that. I'm thinking this has got to be Seth Rollins' match as well. He had the great beatdown of Cody Rhodes on the way out on Monday Night Raw recently. He did the honors by losing 3 high-profile matches in a row. You have to give him his due. And what better way to do it than to have him lurking in the background? He is the perfect type of character for a Money in the Bank. To sit there week after week in his villain costumes, clutching that briefcase, pretending the night's the night, and then not being the night. And then down the road, you have a legit built-in storyline that they teased once before, even before it was really time, and that being Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins,
yes,
which was a great match that they had. but they had to rush into it because it was sort of a plan B. But with some time behind it and Seth constantly teasing that, he could really get on the nerves of the bloodline and I think create some compelling television, because we're going to need something moving forward to keep things interesting for Roman Reigns, who's at this point literally ran through everybody. And I think Seth Rollins is a good person to put that on.
And man, I don't know if anybody bleeds red and blue like Seth Rollins does, other than his wife, Becky Lynch. I mean, these two are hardcore WWE lifers, that carry that corporate flag. Let's give this guy some play. Let's give him a little something.
And Doug, we're only a few minutes after the hour, which is amazing considering how much news we had,
right?
And 2 pay-per-views. So what do you say for the last time for a little while before we go on a summer break?
Let's do this.
All of that. Let's hit the big finish.
Let's hit it.
Doug, I'm just going to start with a blanket. Let's go botch of the week.
There's what do you got for a botch of the week, man?
Men behaving badly. Can we just say that? In a week where the ultra-talented Sasha Banks is allowed to slip out of WWE's hands, you have a wrestling landscape dominated by stories of men behaving very, very badly, while a talented female is allowed to just wither away while on the roster and then walk away just to get her out of her contract. Vince and John Laurinaitis caught up in scandal, New Japan having their own scandal to deal with, Tony Khan's decision to take a chance on Jeff Hardy blowing up in his face, Jeff's is coming again to substance issues, finding him again, just men behaving very, very badly is my botch of the week.
You know what? I was going to go with some wrestling related stuff, even though everything you just said is very wrestling related. But, I'm going to back out of that and back you up on this because, absolutely with the week we have had in wrestling, everything, I get Jeff Hardy's situation. I mean, he's fighting his own demons. And I guess it could be argued that maybe Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis are fighting their own demons, but I'm calling BS on that. These are men behaving badly. Yes, I am on board with this. The New Japan nonsense with Kota Ibushi, Vince, Laurinaitis, poor Jeff. God, there's probably 17 other things we haven't had a chance to cover or that have happened while we've been on the air tonight. But I'm on board with you. I am on board with you, man.
The biggest scandal involving the female contingent in the world of wrestling all have to do with them being underutilized and them being allowed to slip out from underneath their contract. So there's a big contrast in those types of stories. So not looking great on the old boys club in the world of professional wrestling.
And really, just to add a little fuel to the fire. I mean, look how they threw, Sasha and Naomi completely under the bus.
Oh, yeah.
Completely run them down. And I actually did the same thing to Stephanie for whatever reason, whether it was to calm the stockholders or just, make themselves look good,
Or sheer sexism, Doug. I mean, let's just be honest. I know we've come a long way in the world of professional wrestling compared to like the old days that we documented on our History of Women in Professional Wrestling show a few months back. But have we really come all that far? I mean, when you see sometimes the way that, like a Naomi and Sasha were treated as tag team champions, they have a legit point. And you don't hear these same types of, things with the women that you do with the men. So who knows if the burying of those women publicly and the burying of Steph publicly isn't just some male chauvinism at play.
Right.
All right, Doug, who's your performer of the week? Let's go to some positive stuff to end on before we hit the summer break.
You know what? This one's a hard one because there's been a lot of positive wrestling that has happened this week in this insane week. If we're talking people who've been on air this week, I want to give a shout out to Switchblade Jay White because I think his heel work has always been immaculate. From the very first time I saw Jay White perform, and I was late to the Jay White train. He was, with Juice Robinson at the Cow Palace. First time I actually saw him working, I was like, this guy is going places. fast forward a few years, he's leader of the Bullet Club. You know, he's New Japan, he's AEW. Man is all over the place. You know, he is hot right now. He just defeated Okada. No small feat for any professional wrestler to do. So, you know, performer wise, Jay White is on fire right now, man.
So I cannot argue with you in the slightest. My performer of the week is someone else who is also on fire, also being seen all over the world, just a different someone. My performer of the week is Rey Fenix. Last night in Tijuana, in a fantastic contest, Phoenix unified the AAA World Cruiserweight and the AAA Latin American Championships by defeating Laredo Kid, Taurus, Vinkingo, and Bandito in a 5-way. And for those of you familiar with any of those other names, you can imagine what a contest that was. You might want to, if you haven't seen it, go watch it and just make sure your DVR is running half speed so you can actually follow what's going on. It was insane. Rey Fenix may be the most agile wrestler on the planet right now. He is my performer of the week.
It's a good call, man. That's a great call.
And Doug, you want to talk match of the week?
So I may have showed my cards a little earlier in the night when I mentioned Ospreay and Harwood on Dynamite, but you know, from the wrestling I saw this week, my goodness, if you needed a real singles introduction to Will Ospreay, you got it, man. And these guys from FTR prove night after night, week after week, month after month, what amazing talents. Cash Wheeler, Dax Harwood, they are both amazing, incredible talents. They can go singles, you know, they could do trios, they could do the tag teams, you know, they could have it all. These guys are so old school, love them for that. You know, this was in a world of wrestlers where that, you know, people come and go, and it's cool that they have these opportunities now. After seeing Cody perform, and especially with his, you know, torn pec and all this, I'm saying, you know, Tony Khan, he should have kept him. You know, I say the same thing for both the guys in FTR, but Harwood, Ospreay this week, if you haven't seen what I'm rambling about right now, stop what I'm doing. Just hit that pause button. Go watch it. Come back. We'll be here, man. But that's mine this week.
Amazing, amazing match. No doubt. Definitely check it out. For my match of the week, Dave Poole, I'm throwing your comment on here because you're reading my mind. That match that Riddle had with Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest with myself, and if we're all being completely honest with ourselves, the match we saw on Friday night in quality is going to far exceed whatever we get at SummerSlam between Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Riddle is another level of character, right? Not just character work, but in-ring work.
Right.
And Roman tends to sometimes, I think, as great as Roman is, he also seems to rise to the level of whatever opponent he's facing. And Riddle pushed the big dog, and he looked like $1 million in the ring. And we all knew that there was no way in the world that Roman Reigns' long title reign was coming to an end on cable television.
Right.
However, there was some near falls at the end that almost made you start to believe it. And that is an amazing feat to make you start to believe something that we all know is impossible and not going to happen. And yet for a moment there, is this Riddle's moment? Right. Like, to that suspension of belief, kudos to Riddle and to Roman Reigns for what an amazing contest that they had. And with that, folks, it is the Two Bros Wrestling Show. No episode next week because we want you to be watching the pay-per-view. No episode the following week because we want you to be watching the pay-per-view. In fact, we won't be back with you until about a month from now, Doug. We're going to take a summer break similar to how we did last year, and we'll be back with the people in time to talk SummerSlam, though. We will not leave you stranded before SummerSlam. Our preview and review shows tend to do really well. We want to make sure we got these pay-per-views previewed for you, and we want to get back in time to preview SummerSlam for you. Who knows, Doug? You might be running WWE by the time we're back on air with the folks.
I might be. If I am, I'm going to sell it to Tony. So, so Papa Khan can have it all.
Folks, hang tight. We took 1 week off, and the wrestling world exploded. We're taking 4 weeks off. Who knows what's going to happen in the course of those 4 weeks? But whatever it is, Doug, I can guarantee you one thing. We will be here on Facebook and on YouTube to talk about it with the folks. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you. See ya.